And then in 1995, I found out I was HIV positive from the doctor. And I kind of knew that I was because you can feel it in your body. It's like you can kind of feel this invasion almost. At that time, after ABBA, after we'd had Always, I said to God, please can you switch it off? This is all a bit much, Yeah. And that's what happened. And I was thinking like, oh no, I didn't mean like that much, but actually it was good for me because I had so many things wrong with me physically. So my body was closing down.
HIV and AIDS have long been surrounded by stigma, but public figures who have openly shared their diagnoses have played a major role in shifting public attitudes. In the UK, several well-known people have spoken out about their experiences, challenging outdated perceptions and advocating for better understanding. Today, we're taking a closer look at some of the most notable UK figures living with HIV or AIDS. Andy Bell. Andy Bell, the dynamic lead vocalist of the synth-pop duo Erasure, has been a prominent figure in the music industry since 1980. In 2004, he publicly disclosed his HIV-positive status, revealing that he had been living with the diagnosis since 1998. Reflecting on his initial reaction, Bell shared, quote, I found out I was HIV positive in June '98 when I had a bout of pneumonia. I consider myself to be a very lucky man. Throughout his career, Bell has been open about his sexuality and health, using his platform to destigmatize HIV. He continued to perform and release music, demonstrating that an HIV diagnosis does not define one's life or career. In a 2014 interview, he reflected on his journey, stating, quote, I'd had enough of being bullied. Bell's openness has contributed significantly to HIV awareness and education. By sharing his experiences, he's helped challenge misconceptions and reduce stigma, inspiring many to live authentically and embrace their identities. Holly Johnson. Holly Johnson rose to fame as the lead singer of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, the band behind hits like Relax and The Power of Love. In 1991, at the height of his solo career, Johnson was diagnosed with HIV. At a time when an HIV-positive status was widely seen as a death sentence, he feared the worst. I just thought I'd had it, he recalled in an interview. I was scared. It was terrifying. Despite the grim outlook, Johnson refused to let his diagnosis define him. He withdrew from the public eye for a time, focusing on his health and creativity. He later described how the breakthrough of effective antiretroviral treatments in the mid-90s gave him a new lease on life. I went from thinking I had 1 or 2 years left to suddenly realizing I had a future, he said. As he regained confidence, Johnson began using his platform to raise awareness about HIV. He became an outspoken advocate for testing, treatment, and destigmatization. He also channeled his experiences into his art, including his autobiography, A Bone in My Flute, in which he openly discussed his journey with the virus.
I didn't know anyone with HIV before I got it, and I had no reason to research it. I was uneducated, I was young, I'm talking about being like 17, 18 and scared, being taught that HIV is something that I should be fearful of. It's not on kids to know how to research that, it's on us to educate them properly and to break that stigma.
Charity Kase. Charity Kase is known for her bold, otherworldly drag style, but behind the elaborate costumes and makeup, she carries a powerful message. In 2021, while competing on RuPaul's Drag Race UK, she opened up about living with HIV, a topic rarely discussed so openly on mainstream television. Diagnosed at 18, she initially struggled with the weight of stigma. When I got diagnosed, I thought that my life was over, she shared during an emotional moment on the show. Rather than letting fear define her, Charity relied on drag as a form of self-expression and resilience. By incorporating elements of horror and fantasy into her performances, she crafted a persona that challenged norms and encouraged conversations about HIV. She has spoken about the importance of visibility, stating, quote, people like me speaking about it means that fewer people will have to go through what I went through. Her honesty on Drag Race UK helped spark discussions about modern HIV treatment and undetectable status, which means a person with HIV on effective treatment cannot pass the virus on. CJ Demuy. CJ Demuy, best known for his role as a panelist on the BBC quiz show Eggheads, has faced many challenges through his life, but none more profound than his HIV diagnosis. He revealed in 2016 that he had been living with the virus since the late 80s, a period when stigma and fear surrounding HIV were at their peak. I've been living with AIDS for 30 years, but the agony of the last 3 years means I may not have many left, he wrote in a heartbreaking tweet, referring to his struggles with homelessness, legal battles, and financial ruin. Long before becoming a television personality, Mooi survived a difficult childhood and lived on the streets as a young man. He has often credited his ability to overcome adversity to his resilience and determination. His public disclosure of his HIV status was not just a personal revelation, but also an effort to highlight the realities of living with the condition. He has spoken candidly about the challenges of accessing treatment and dealing with societal prejudices. I'm constantly fighting, constantly having to justify myself, constantly having to survive, he said. Despite facing hardships, Mooi continues to advocate for greater awareness and support for people living with HIV.
Hello, my name's Jonathan Blake. I've been living with HIV since 1982. I was 33. I was told it was a terminal diagnosis. There was no cure, they had nothing, no medication. All that they would be able to offer me was palliative care. Suddenly, I felt my life was over.
Jonathan Blake. Jonathan Blake is one of the earliest known people in the UK to be diagnosed with HIV. In 1982, before the virus even had a name, he received the devastating news that he had what was then called GRID, gay-related immune deficiency. Like many at the time, he was told to prepare for the worst. I was given 6 months to live, he later recalled. Yet, against all odds, he's not only survived, but has spent decades fighting for the rights of others living with the virus. Blake became a key figure in Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners, a grassroots movement that supported striking coal miners in the 80s. His activism was later immortalized in the 2014 film Pride, which showcased his role in uniting LGBTQ+ activists with the labor movement. Reflecting on those years, he said, quote, "It was an extraordinary time of solidarity, and it gave me something to live for." Unlike many who lived with HIV in the early days of the crisis, Blake had access to experimental treatments which helped extend his life. He has since dedicated much of his life to breaking down the stigma surrounding HIV, regularly speaking about his experiences and advocating for better healthcare access.
I do not remember having what would be regarded as unsafe sex by the normal rules before I contracted HIV.
Andrew Sullivan. Andrew Sullivan, a British-born journalist, author, and political commentator, has been one of the most influential voices in modern media. Known for his sharp political analysis and groundbreaking work in LGBTQ+ advocacy, he's never shied away from discussing his HIV-positive status. Diagnosed in the early 90s, Sullivan was among the first prominent gay public figures to speak openly about living with the virus at a time when fear and stigma were widespread. In a 1996 essay for the New York Times Magazine, he wrote, "When I tested positive, I realized I had to figure out how to live, not just how to die." Sullivan's honesty about his diagnosis became a powerful tool in shifting the public conversation about HIV. As a longtime proponent of same-sex marriage and LGBTQ+ rights, he used his platform to advocate for better healthcare access and more informed discussions on HIV treatment. He's often addressed the impact of medical advancements, emphasizing that people with HIV can now live long and healthy lives thanks to antiretroviral therapy. Aiden Shaw. Aiden Shaw first gained fame in the 90s as a model, musician, and adult film actor, but his life took a significant turn when he was diagnosed with HIV in 1997. Reflecting back, he shared, quote, "I assumed, like many did, that my life expectancy had been cut short. I didn't know what was ahead." Rather than retreating from the public eye, Shaw channeled his experiences into writing. He became a successful author, publishing memoirs and novels that explored themes of sexuality, identity, and living with HIV. His books, including My Undoing and Sordid Truths, provided an unfiltered look at his life, giving insight into the realities of his diagnosis while challenging misconceptions about HIV. Now it's time to hear from you. Can you think of other prominent UK celebs who are living with HIV or AIDS? Let us know in the comments section below.